I think over time, in the very long term, the most valuable people will be the ones with the biggest ideas because a lot of the execution, oh, yeah, you probably will have AI and agents that can help make things happen. But the big thinkers, the people with the big, crazy, audacious ideas, we're always going to need those.
Hello, and welcome to Asking Good Questions, the podcast where we explore the complexities of the modern business world by doing the extremely complicated thing of, well, it's literally in the title, Asking Good Questions. I'm your host, Edward Roske, professional question asker. Is that a job? And today I am joined by someone who believes that all business is personal, something that I will be diving into. John Beringer is a managing director at Spaulding Ridge, a global cloud advisory and implementation firm. He's got a track record that's about a mile long of building successful consulting practices, guiding organizations through technology strategy, technology implementation, growing multiple lines of business at lightning speed or whatever is faster than lightning. He has made quite a name for himself, especially in the cloud consulting world. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me and glad to be here.
And what John is thinking right now is of all the introductions I've ever received, that is by far the most recent. John, you started here at Spaulding Ridge pretty much you started kind of at the inception, right? Helped grow it into a formidable consulting firm. Before that, I can't remember. I think I met you when you were at Huron. Let's talk about that journey. What first drew you to consulting? And was it because the idea of computers living in clouds just sounds cool?
No, I mean, how I got into consulting, I'll admit, was maybe a little by accident. Most kids in college, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. And consulting, stringing a whole bunch of projects together for different companies and, doing different things felt like actually a way to punt the what do you want to do decision further down the road. And so joined, I guess, 12 plus years ago now, Jay's first business out of college to get into the Oracle space. But I'll admit I didn't know it was going to be like Oracle EPM consulting at the time. It was just sort of, the best opportunity to get into consulting I had. And so, sort of got into the consulting world a little by accident.
And after you've been rising up, you now have this ethos that I get a kick of, but I want to explore it more. All business is personal. First of all, what does that mean?
So, back when we, Jay started Spaulding Ridge and we had business cards, I think the pandemic sort of killed the business card concept, but it was, even written on our business cards. And the idea was that, business doesn't really get done between companies. They don't doesn't get done between Spaulding Ridge and, BP. It gets done between John and Edward. That's how work really gets done. And so, we apply that same principle not just to our clients, but to our channel partners, to our people, and how we work in developing our consultants. And so, all business is personal, that at the end of the day, it's about the interpersonal relationships that sort of make this industry work. And I think, it helps impact our projects, our, clients and our people along the way.
Speaking of business cards, I was teaching at Stanford. I was guest lecturing, and the average age in the room was less than half of mine. And I finished talking, and some people come up afterwards like, "Oh, I'd love to follow up with you afterwards." And I pull out a business card and try and hand it across. And it wasn't a look of disgust like he's trying to hand me COVID. It was a look of, why does this person want to hand me paper trash? Does he wish for me to recycle it for him? And then I said, well, I was giving my contact information. They're like, I took a photo when you had your slide up, like, I don't know, an hour ago, boomer. And I'm like, I'm not, oh, never mind. It's fine. I understand. When you're working out there and you think through all business is personal, how does that affect the consulting at Spaulding Ridge? Like, how does it affect that client interaction?
One of the things that we tell our consultants frequently is that, just as important as this project is for you and your career development, it is for our clients too. big projects are, career makers or career breakers for folks on the client side. Being able to build large, uh, build and deploy a large, consolidation platform. Like that's a really big deal for a director of finance. And, it's the sort of thing that helps them get promoted and, helps them advance their career. And so, ultimately helping our clients get done the things that are important to them personally, and, in turn, then their organization, but helping our clients get done things that are important to them personally and get time back. So many of our projects are ultimately about creating time-saving opportunities for our people, and then they, turn around, and that means watching more T-ball games. That means, more time, with your family. That means, less time sitting in the office. That means Saturdays that aren't spent on uh, running close processes or building pipeline reports or whatever it might be. Helping get people time back. That's sort of like the most valuable thing you can do for them. And so, as we, engage in our projects, understanding like what's most important to the individual people participating in the project is a super important part of making them successful, and then ultimately delivering in an all businesses personal way.
I I like understanding that this actually does have an impact on people's personal lives. I was gathering requirements one time and I said, okay, let's define what success looks like. And I was talking to the CFO of a Fortune 500 company, and he said, success means I'll be able to take a vacation during month-end close for the first time in 27 years. I was like, wow, like never, like having to go to your family. I'm sorry, that's the first 5 working days of the month. Obviously, we can't go anywhere like during that period. And I like the human aspect. Speaking of humans, what are the big differences just in terms of consulting and interaction between like a large established firm, publicly traded, and a more kind of startup type world? I know they're a lot bigger than that now, but what are the differences?
Yeah, no, it is. It's very different. I was at Spaulding Ridge the day we put Wi-Fi in the first office, and so, there's some elements of, in the early days, you're going to do all sorts of things, and that's going to be true of any consultancy, or sorry, any company, not just consultancy in the infancy stages. You could get signed up for all sorts of cool projects. But in the consulting world, one of the things that I think was very different when we went, when Spaulding Ridge started was, we were focused on what we framed as best in cloud technologies. We were focused on what we felt was sort of a new opportunity in the cloud ecosystem, to work with new players. And so we had the chance to work with some of the newer, at the time, sort of more cutting edge technologies in Anaplan, OneStream, Salesforce, ultimately got into DocuSign and Snowflake and so on. And so working with those new technologies was a really neat opportunity. And, ultimately, like when you're in a smaller environment, you get to take more risks. You make decisions more quickly, you try things more quickly, you fail more quickly, and that's okay. Being able to take more risks, like to me, that's actually a lot of fun. Being able to do things for the first time, you're building out your methodology, you're figuring out how you're going to do things. There's a lot of fun to be had, at least for me. I might be crazy when I say that, but there's a lot of fun to be had in doing things that are, being done for the first time with new technologies, taking some big risks. I very much appreciated those days.
So, speaking of that rapid growth and taking those risks and expanding, you've recently taken on the role of managing director. Before that, you were chief strategy officer. And before that, I think you went through like 5 positions and rather impressive rising up over a pretty short span. I mean, that's quite a career acceleration. What's your day-to-day like now? Or how are you applying that consulting philosophy in a managing director role?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's been really cool about the opportunity at Spaulding Ridge and my career at Spaulding Ridge is I've gotten the chance to touch sort of every line of business and every geography that we have here. I've worked with all of our technologies, and I've worked in, helped us get going in Asia, helped us get going in Europe, and so on. And so I've gotten to see a lot of different things, and that has contributed, I think, in large part to my development and growth. My day to day now, I oversee what we frame as our revenue excellence business, which is focused primarily on like our more revenue operations oriented services. So Salesforce, DocuSign, sales planning and forecasting, territory and quota planning, the things that are more relevant to to our sales operations clients.
So with Spaulding Ridge's focus on those cloud technologies, focus on that more modern, do we really need bare metal and have to figure out how to install it type world? Do you see those services evolving lately? I mean, has the conversation shifted from, wait, what is this cloud thing and why is it scary? Nobody understands it at all, to, okay, let's just assume, or are you still battling some of those, we feel a need to leave a bunch of stuff on-prem? Like, how do you deal with those conversations, like industries that are traditionally slower to adopt new technologies, or is just everybody's on your side at this point and they're like, I'll go in cloud full steam ahead?
Yeah, no, I mean, it is interesting. Like, there's a wild spectrum, right? You have industries that are still big believers in on-premise technology for whatever reason, or, maybe haven't even made the conscious decision to be on-premise. They're just sort of, traditional laggards, and you see that a lot in, the utility space or oil and gas or whatever it might be. Then you have, sort of our core clients in the high tech and manufacturing world that are all bought in on cloud, and the opportunities that using cloud SaaS platforms provide. And then at the far other end of the equation, and we're having more and more conversations about this, how does AI ultimately advance our organization, and does it replace SaaS platforms? Does it augment SaaS platforms? What AI things should we be doing? What should we be piloting? What should we be investing in? And so it is, the conversation, depending upon whose office you're in on any given day, could change pretty dramatically.
And I do want to dive into AI. We'll do it after the commercial break, but there are a couple aspects I want to cover. I want to talk about, do we see it displacing jobs in industry, but then also do we see it displacing positions in the consulting world? Like, are there things we can do? But before we go to that, I was reading through your bio, and we've known each other for years. When you talk about those personal relationships and the importance of them, you've got a lot of people you have to keep relationships with. You clearly have consultants, you have people at Spaulding Ridge and elsewhere, you have clients, you have technology partners. In just pure practical terms, like, how do you foster relationships at scale when you go from 5 people on a project to 200 people in a division?
Yeah, I mean, it isn't without like a lot of thought and planning. I manage, even, for example, I manage my travel schedule on sort of like a quarterly basis. There are a handful of cities that I know that I need to go to at least once a quarter, for sort of like relationship management or maintenance reasons. I know that I have to go to Dallas because I have a couple of longtime clients that are there and need to see them. And while you're in Dallas, you also catch up with, we have some Spaulding Ridge employees that are in Dallas. You also catch up with some of your channel partners who are in Dallas. And then, so Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, San Francisco, like I knew I need to go to all of those places at least once a quarter, sometimes more. And I have a list of people sort of in each place that I need to catch up with while I'm there. The other thing I use very diligently, and airplane Wi-Fi has gotten really pretty solid. While you're sitting there in row 21, like, who can you text? Who can you check in on? How do you keep up with people? But yeah, you have to be, diligent and intentional about continuing to maintain relationships. Because, I tell our consultants this frequently, you never know who's going to be the CFO of some company 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And we're going to need to book business then too, right? And so, you never know what relationship might be valuable, some point down the road. And the more deposits, the more things you can do to help them out in the meantime, more valuable that relationship might ultimately prove to be for you when you need help.
I like it. I was trying to find there was a Hyperion administrator on a project I did, before it was Oracle EPM. So let's call it 2013, 2014, something like that. And I hadn't talked to her in a while, so I went and looked her up on LinkedIn. She's now the CFO of a $10 billion company. And to your point, like you never know where someone's going to go, but just keeping in touch. We lose so much of that today, and it'd be nice to blame it on COVID, but we're in this virtual world, and we're all so busy that trying to find time to go talk to people. I have friends like you that like golfing. It's like it's really hard to find 4 hours nowadays, unless you go like, okay, and I'm also giving up the weekend, and I found a place that's got great light, so I can play at 11 o'clock at night. I appreciate your commitment to actually being in person and being present for those people you're talking to.
Yeah, well, I mean, another common saying of mine, like people don't spend seven figures with some guy they've never met. And I think the pandemic sort of softened people's perspective on this. But as back when I got started in this industry, and when you had your business, like you were on site Monday to Thursday every week. You got on a plane, you sat in their conference rooms. We don't need to get back to that, but real relationship building happens in person. And we have to make sort of the conscious effort to get out there and get in person, because I think it makes a really big difference.
Yeah, I remember even long before the days of work from home or work from Zoom, or nobody knows where you're working these days. I had a sales advisor tell me it was hours, but I will summarize it into one sentence. People buy from people. At the end of the day, you don't want to buy from an algorithm. You don't want to go, well, this is a remarkably well formatted statement of work. Like, look at the punctuation on this thing. I choose that. People want to buy from someone they can imagine themselves being on a project with. You're going to be spending months with them, either virtually, in person, hybrid, whatever. And if they can trust you, to your point, not only will they be willing to sign over $7 million, but they're also signing over their time and saying, I'm going to actually devote a portion of my life, maybe more than they spend with their own family during that period. And I have respect for it.
That's all business is personal in action.
Yes, well said, sir. We are going to turn to the future, but before we look to the future, we're going to take a brief 30 seconds to hear from today's sponsors, Capris AI, who are leading us into the future of AI. This episode of Asking Good Questions is brought to you by the great folks at Capris AI. As someone who's spent over 25 years helping improve the office of the CFO, I am genuinely excited about what Capris is doing. They're bringing the power of AI to finance and accounting teams in a way that actually makes sense, helping unlock insights buried in data and make better business decisions even faster. If you're in FP&A or accounting and you want to see how AI can transform your workflow, check out Capris AI. Trust me, your future self will thank you. So looking beyond the present, the consulting world is in constant evolution. So cloud has virtually replaced the world of on-premise or on-premises, depending on if you went to a public or private school, implementations. But AI could cause an even bigger sea change. So services companies going out and trying to deliver and build solutions, they have the opportunity to disrupt or to be disrupted. So at Spaulding Ridge, let's start with an easy one. How much customer demand are you seeing right now for AI?
Yeah, it's a good question, and very top of mind. We were just pulling some data together in the last week or two. A little over 10% of our projects in 2024 involve deploying some amount of AI solution for our clients. And so, that spans a lot of different forms. It could be, machine learning work to help improve forecasting accuracy, or it could be more like generative AI work using some of the agentic capabilities that are out there to help augment customer support models. And so, or, we do some really interesting work with, contract extractions. And you can, this take a lot of different forms, but pulling data out of, large contract sets to better understand liability that exists in them. And so, north of 10% of our projects include at least some portion of AI deployment. And I would say it's on the roadmap at, probably half of our clients. It's going to become a really big part of our work on a day-to-day basis.
Excellent. So let's talk about the different ways that can take shape when you're delivering that AI. If you ask the SaaS vendors, they will either tell you they have AI, that they've had it all along and you just didn't notice it, or they'll tell you that they're adding it, and sometime in 3 to 5 years, you'll have access to it. There's also, of course, we created AI in 1940s. I think Turing came up with the more modern concept of it. The old school machine learning, neural networking, linear regression, that kind of thing, or more modern generative AI, document imaging, document, vision. You mentioned a lot of those. Are you finding right now in that 10 to 20% space that people are trying to more implement the AI features that their vendors are currently providing, or are they going, no, what we want to do is more of a custom build solution right now, maybe leveraging the top of a DocuSign or a Salesforce or an Oracle or a OneStream or whatever? Do you see them more on the custom build, or are they leveraging tech capability, or are they saying, let's use it when it's there, but maybe it's not there yet?
Yeah, I think, so many of our clients are still in sort of an experimentation phase. And, in many cases, the board told them they have to have an AI strategy and point of view. And so they're looking for places to try it. And as a result, and part of what we tend to advise our clients, it's easier to start with your existing vendors' AI capabilities. Everybody has something. Some of them are, actually not terribly revolutionary. Like someone was showing me something the other day, and your, legacy Oracle listeners will appreciate this, but I was like, this looks like Crystal Ball. Like people have been doing this for 25 years. But anyways, some of them are not, super revolutionary stuff, but some of them are. And ultimately, starting with the cloud vendors that you're already engaged with, and how they can help you with your, adoption of AI is a really good place to start. Back to sort of how, Spaulding Ridge got started, the premise was, best in cloud solutions. We were sort of picking what we saw as the winners in the cloud ecosystem. There's a world for, sort of a best in AI company. And, I think we'd love to be those people, but, that will come someday, but no one has won the AI space. Sort of waiting and making bets on the existing cloud vendors while some of the really cool stuff starts to mature and we see which horses to bet on is probably the right answer for most mature enterprise organizations.
This would make betting a lot easier if we could wait until 3/4 of the way through the race and go, oh, Secretariat is ahead by 17 lengths. Yeah, right now the race hasn't even really started. People are trying to figure out what little lanes they want in at this point. I was talking with somebody the other day about AI-driven coding, or vibe coding as we're calling it at this brief moment in time. That will let you know when we recorded this episode, because that term is probably going to last about 2 weeks. But people were talking about I use Cursor, I use Replit, or they mentioned a bunch of other tools. And I think it was only maybe 6 months ago that Devon was this product that kind of came out and got it started. Hardly anyone's even talking about it anymore from their perspective. It's really easy to kind of lose that horse race. The important thing is to be in the race. And I like what you're doing. Spread the bets, right? Like show up to wherever it is horses race. Show up to the racing arena, and like make sure you're there as opposed to standing outside going like, well, one of these days I'm going to walk in. How how are you using AI, not just for your clients, but being a rapidly growing company, being a cloud-first company, how are you using AI internally at Spaulding Ridge, or do you have strategy for it?
Yeah, no, it's a really important question. We sort of view our AI strategy as bifurcated. There's the sort of, what are the AI things we're doing for our clients to adopt AI? And, then there's how are we adopting AI internally? Because, you just mentioned that, people are using AI to augment and write code and, that ultimately, like engineers, I think, feel the threat as much as anyone in the AI race that's out there. What consultants do is not terribly far off from some of the engineering work that's out there. And so we know that AI will fundamentally change what our industry looks like. How and when, like it's not happening tomorrow, but 5 years from now I bet it looks different. 10 years from now I'm very sure it will look different. And so we're starting to make some bets on the adoption of it internally. One of the things that we're looking at, and I've already started down the path of, is like, how do you start to engage agents in some of our delivery? Like, how do you use project management agents for better managing scope? Like even being able to take, like, for example, like call recordings and match them up against the statement of work and tell you like what was discussed that was in scope or out of scope. Like that's super helpful. Being able to use agents to help in the creation of documentation, being able to use technology to help our integrations team write the code they have to write, or even get them started and check their work and so on. Like those are all things that we're looking at adopting internally, because we know that just as our clients are sort of piloting AI for their own use cases, because they know it's going to change their industry. We have to do the same, because it's going to change our industry too, and there will be, I think, winners and losers in terms of how quickly and how well consultancies adopt AI, because it will certainly change the game.
So let's talk about that one for a second. There are consultants currently out there providing services that are worried that the days of charging per hour for something will be shortened. That there's a future that's, I don't know, it's going to be more value-based or project-based, or maybe AI just does the whole thing and the consultant just maybe sits around and tells it what to do. For those people that are concerned in the consulting world, like this is your opportunity to give them some advice. What skill sets do you think that tomorrow's consultants need to develop just to remain relevant in this rapidly changing tech landscape?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there are probably two things that stick out to me the most. The first is being able to understand and be sort of like AI literate. Understand the technologies that are involved is going to be super important, and that is certainly one part of it. But arguably, what I think is probably the most important part, and this hasn't changed just because AI has started to change the industry. The better sort of advisor that you are and the deeper functional knowledge that you have about the business problems and business processes that you're advising your client on, like there will always be room for that person at the table. Asking good questions, name of the podcast, but like
nice
asking
plug.
good
We're going to drop that in. Yes.
Yes, yeah, I did that just for you.
Thanks,
But being able to ask good questions and help people solve business problems, like there will always be room for that person at the table, because someone's going to have to review and look at what an agent produces, and like the agent's only going to be as good as the questions that you ask it, and so being able to really understand the business process and business problem that your client is faced with is the most important way to add value for your clients. And it was when I got started in this industry too.
So before we get to our quick hit section, I admit I have an answer for this question, but I don't want to hear my own. I want to hear yours. In the short term, does AI create or destroy jobs in consulting?
Probably closer to create or change than destroy. I just think that people are going to be doing more things and different things. There's going to be a lot more need for change management. Like, how do you adopt AI that's out there? How do you, help, better leverage the technologies that are in place? How do you move data around to fuel the agents that are available? I think in the short term there could actually be more demand for consultants, just probably a different kind of consultant that maybe existed 10 years ago. So I'd be curious though, is that what your answer
That was
would
the
be?
correct answer. Yes, like well
Okay.
done. I talk to some people that think, well, any technology tends to destroy jobs. I'm like, no, look back at any new technology. It always comes out with a net greater creation, especially during that time of transition. People, I don't know, go back to the horse and buggy being replaced by the car. All of a sudden, people had no idea how to fix this thing, like whenever it broke, and like, why did it suddenly stop? Oh, gasoline. What is gasoline? It generates more jobs. Does it take away? Yeah, it takes some of the older way of doing it to replace them with the new one. But in the short term, you still needed people to repair the buggies as well as make the cars, repair the cars, gas up the cars, create the cars, make the roads so we can suddenly go everywhere. So yeah, I am eternally a technology optimist. Every time somebody tells me that this new technology will take away the old thing, I go, the consulting world is still expanding. That said, I can see a world in the long term where consulting is very different than we think about it now. That maybe a lot of stuff we do at the moment will be like done by a robot with a tie, and maybe our job will be to pick up the tie. It's a stretched metaphor. I think you're right. I think we're going to be the ones coming up with the new ideas, the expanding of capability. Congratulations, we automated and took care of all that other stuff. Someone has to maintain, support, and implement the transition of the automation, but someone has to come up with new concepts and start saying, what else are we going to do with artificial intelligence? What capabilities does it unlock? Not what capabilities does it replace? That resonate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think over time, in the very long term, the most valuable people will be the ones with the biggest ideas, because a lot of the execution, you probably will have AI and agents that can help make things happen, but the big thinkers, the people with the big, crazy, audacious ideas, we're always going to need those.
Yeah, there's been a trend towards the death of the liberal arts like backgrounds and bachelor's degrees. Yet the most in-demand prompt engineers are the ones with the liberal arts degrees. It's the ones who understand anthropology and psychology and sociology and how people think and how to frame a good question out there. So if anyone's thinking like, oh, I don't know, maybe I want to go to school for like copy editing, maybe that's not the right route. But if you want to go get a literature degree, I think that's going to be hugely valuable going forward. Okay, time for our speed rounds. This is going to be quick questions, quick answers. Don't overthink it. Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Most underrated cloud platform or cloud tool? Like everybody should be having this.
Calendly. Like, why do people not use tools to manage their calendar more effectively? Like, what a slam dunk idea.
Yeah, why don't we have like two people's Calendlys go work it out? Like, why can't it be like, is that a hard agent to build out? Like, just find time when they're both available. I think you're onto something here. Most overhyped cutting edge technology.
What I think is sort of interesting is like the big AI players OpenAI and Anthropic and so on. I am not quite sure I understand the like path to like enterprise adoption and revenue just yet. One of the things that scares us, and part of the reason that we're investing heavily in, AI from within our four walls is, most of the AI spend out there today is actually being done at the consumer level, not at the enterprise level. And so how well do you control the information that's being put into them? So I think there's a path to adoption, but until then, like what is sort of the revenue model for this business?
Yeah, well put. I don't think this is one of those fads or hypes that's going to die. Like, I don't think it's going to be like grid computing. For anybody that wants to see grid computing at its finest, go watch Iron Man 2, where Iron Man is saved through the power of the Oracle grid. And that is the only place you can find grid computing. Also, a nice cameo by Larry Ellison in it. AI is here to stay, but you're exactly correct. Is it going to be a race to the bottom? Like, how do you make a profitable $100 billion company that's trying to offer something for 13 cents per million tokens out there, and that we haven't yet hit the floor? Biggest mistake clients make when starting a digital transformation project?
Not having success criteria. Like how will you know when you are standing there 12 months from now, like 2 thumbs up, we crushed it? Because you're going to write a big check. You're going to write a big check to us. You're going to write a big check to some software vendor. You're going to, ask your people to work nights and weekends. And so, how do you know that you were successful? And being sort of honest about like what that success is a really important part of outlining before you get started, because it helps you hold your consultants accountable, helps you hold your software vendors accountable, and helps you hold your internal people accountable.
Best career advice you've ever received?
Say yes. It's part of how I've gotten the opportunity to work with all of the different technologies, work in all of these different geos. Gotten to see some really cool stuff. And it's been by, generally being sort of up for whatever, like solving in many cases, the problem like no one else wants to go solve, the thing that, we just need somebody to help out with. If you're yeah, I'm up for that guy, you'll get to do some cool stuff over the long run.
Awesome. Speaking of cool stuff, favorite golf course you've played so far?
I've gone to play. I've been fortunate to play a lot of like really cool tracks. The ones that to me stick out are the ones that border on. I love history, and so the ones that border on museums. The old course at St. Andrews, Pebble Beach, Pinehurst, the places that have Carnoustie that have all of this history. Those are the ones that sort of like have the that I have the softest spot for.
Awesome. Any golf course still on your bucket list?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly plenty that I've not gotten to see. I'd love to see, on the sort of museum list. I've been to the Masters, but I've not played Augusta. That place has more history than really anyone else out there, and so yeah, there's a handful of big old historic spots that I'd love to see still.
Yeah, I have it on good authority that if anyone at Augusta challenges you to a round and they're wearing a green jacket, don't take them up on it. Like, apparently that's the hustlers there all wear these really actually kind of ugly green jackets, but serious respect. John, it has been great diving into your journey at the rapid rise, hearing about the growth of Spaulding Ridge, your take on building personal relationships in business, where cloud consulting is headed, where AI is headed.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, and a lot of exciting stuff happening in this space these days as we think about the move into AI, and we're excited about being able to help our clients with that transition, in addition to all of the many SaaS platforms we support out there today.
Well said. Even in a cloud-driven world, it's still about people, and it's all about advancement. Keep learning, keep moving ahead. Thanks again, John, for joining us today, and thanks to our sponsor, Capris AI, for supporting this episode. To our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. Please, on whatever your podcast tool is of choice, like and subscribe. And until next time, keep asking good questions.